Thank you. Good afternoon. Good to see you all here. I'm happy to talk to you today about our data journey within VTTI on behalf of our partner Denodo. My name is Hans Geurts. I'm the CIO of VTTI, and I'm together here with Leander, our data and analytics lead, and we will discuss with you some of our use cases we use within our company. Let me start with a little bit telling you about VTTI. What are we? We are an independent storage provider of energy and other essential products, chemicals, oil and gas. Founded in 2006, so we're relatively new, and we are present in 5 regions, having multiple terminals globally across the world. And one important thing about data is, for example, we have over 10 million cubes of storage that we have over the world. We are loading 11,000 vessels, trucks and trains globally every year. So you can imagine that in our environment, we only not manage the IT environment, but also the operational technology, that we have massive amounts of data available. And how we unlock that, that will also Leander touch upon later there. So what do? We are a midstream industries. So that means also that we store our essential products in our tanks globally, and also we do some of the refinery, also on oil and also on the chemicals part. So we are not in the upstream like our shareholders like Shell, for example, but we are in the middle part there. That's our core competence and our core business. One of the things that we defined also within the company is that we are advancing through technology. And one of the sentences that you will see here is that we say also it's not only about the data, it's really about the information that we need within our company. Really important. I think a lot is being talked today about data. We can really have massive amounts of data available, but it's also about the information you provide to your business people and what to do with that. And of course, last but not least, we are really making a difference with our people, with our culture. We are a people-centric and focused business, which is really important also in our B2B market, but also within our company. So like I said, my name is Hans Geurts. I'm the CEO of VTTI. I have an extensive history also working with Heineken, Wolters Kluwer and some of the other big companies. And Leander, he can introduce himself as well.
Yes.
Leander.
Hi, my name is Leander. I've been working within our data department since January this year. Before that, I had a broad background from within VTTI, finance, operations. So really allowing to leverage my internal network within the business to set priorities. And of course, I've had the necessary schooling here and there to help me make the transition. Some points we would want to make. Some of the context, I mean, obviously one is the quotes that people make around data being the new oil, data being the new electricity, right? And about it being quite hard to imagine any industry, which of course is, I'm preaching to the choir a bit here, right? But imagining any industry that would be remained untouched by all these developments, and happy to take you through the story of how these developments touch our industry and VTTI specifically over the next 15 minutes or so. Okay, maybe to paint a little bit of a better picture and some more context around data science at VTTI and around the fact that we have not so much been approaching it as a threat, seeing it as a threat, but rather as an opportunity. That of course has to do a lot with the fact that we are not a B2C business, right, with thousands of anonymous customers. We also don't have the let's say, the numbers-driven data models like maybe insurance or banking or travel, any of these sort of more sort of data-intensive business model industries have that we have seen getting disrupted, right, over the last 15 years or so. But more and more, our shareholders, our competitors, our stakeholders broader, right, the municipality of Rotterdam, the port of Singapore, these all start employing data scientists. These all start leveraging on data when it comes to city planning, when it starts to estimating demand flows throughout the world. And also more and more closer to home, some of the opportunities, of course, presented by data science have becoming more and more mainstream, right? We all know the stories about monitoring vibrations on pumps to see whether a pump is going to fail, right? There's of course industry partners who for half a decade already know specifically what frequencies to pick up on in order to say this is a lining issue or this is perhaps a friction issue at the pump. So more and more is becoming mainstream as well, and there's also less pathfinding for us to do. On the other hand, we are also pathfinding ourselves, right? Venturing more and more into our first own algorithms, where we try to see, can we, on the basis of the 10, 15,000 vessels that we've loaded at a site these last 5-6 years, can we predict how long it's going to take when this next vessel or barge is going to arrive? And really, therefore, trying to manage expectations of our customers better, allowing our customers to better manage expectations with the rest of the value chain within the port area. To do that, we have the VTTI data team. It is small but growing. Last year we still only had 3 people, and now we've expanded. We're venturing more and more as well into processes and people more and more as well, as we see that focusing really only on the technical side does not make us a very effective team. So really also trying to find what is the best operating model there as well. And also, of course, we'll get to Denodo more and more, how Denodo helps us do that, how it helps us with our developer productivity. We have been painting a picture of where we would like VTTI to be in terms of data over the next few years, and taking into account how we're going to paint that picture are specifically these 3 pitfalls or sort of guidelines, principles that we have taken into account. These are sort of the building blocks for the 3-year data journey at VTTI that I will present on the next slide. Looking at what is realistic, what is sort of ballpark, what are estimates of what you can realize through leveraging data effectively. Talking about the 3% EBITDA uplift. Doesn't sound like much actually, but when you put it to our EBITDA figures and then you multiply it times a typical valuation multiple in our sector, that's roughly 75 million of value that you can create, right? And how realistic is it really that you're going to create this 75 million of value with 1 or 2 interns at headquarters, right? Because actually in terms of value, it's similar to what we have in a whole terminal where we employ 50 to 100 people. Also, 7 people is also maybe a small team to still realize this value, but we're working on that. 2 other principles we wanted to, and they're a little bit interrelated, right? The point about specificity. Not all data being the new oil, right? And us really needing to be more and more driven by the business in terms of what we need to look at. We are an oil and gas company, we are a midstream company, but we are really not a conventional engineering company where everything we do is scoped out very well up front. We are very action driven. It's also, I think, one of the reasons why we've been able to grow as fast over the last 15 years. So if you don't deliver value quite quickly through your information, the information that you serve up to our stakeholders, you're not even going to get the feedback to further refine the product. The project is just going to stall there. So then, of course, making this point, yeah, you've heard these percentages, right? 10% really is algorithms, there's 20% around tech, but the majority is really trying to get people to adopt these things into their workflows, trying to get them even to comment on your products, right? As it comes to how can this change your workflow. And we're also figuring that out, right? Like, hey, we have this new product for you. You have 2 months to start using it because the old environment, we're no longer supporting it. So, and only then do you really see that you're starting to get the right feedback, you get positive momentum, and that has been more and more working for us recently. And that, of course, is not possible then, right? If you do not have a data architecture, a data infrastructure that Denodo helps us put in place that allows you to then quite quickly and productively integrate that feedback. Also, I think I'm going to skip through to just give you the full oversight, right? But this is language, of course, from Gartner, McKinsey, etc., in terms of the restrictive, descriptive, predictive, prescriptive. We've tried to make it a little bit more simple to also become a method of internal communication. And we've been sticking to these 3 phases when it comes to looking at the next 3 years at VTTI. Last year, so the first year was really all about foundations, right? Moving away from this assumption-driven culture. So really finding one place where to collect data, laying the foundation from which we can then move on to the second phase, which is what we're going through this year, becoming more and more insight-driven. So, of course, we needed to have the Denodo data management layer in place before we could then publish data models to, for example, Power BI, right? To inform our users with correct, user-friendly data, allowing us to sort of switch from restrictive to descriptive. And then more and more, as I was saying, we're also collecting more and more data, larger data frames within Denodo that allow us to then start developing our first predictive, prescriptive use cases as well, right? So finding the right variables that are going to allow you to predict how long this vessel is going to take. We pull in internal sources in terms of all the old data that we have seen, but we also pull in external sources of weather information in order to see what are the relevant variables that are going to help us manage the expectations of our customers better. Specifically, we're going to dive into a few things around the strategy. So also in terms of, if you want to talk to us about this later, right? How has the journey been? How has your team growth been? How have you been tackling data quality issues, data governance issues? We'd be keen to speak to you about that later as well. But just trying to give you a small overview here. So as I said, 2021, did a comparative analysis with also other data management providers and landed on Denodo on the basis of free trials that we ran. Moving the foundations and culture more and more into the next phase. In order to get the right feedback, get the right engagement, we have informed the community, sort of super users, and formed task force, getting them to look at specific applications while they're still in a user acceptance testing environment before we move them to production. And then tackling data governance issues as they come up, right? So who gets to see what, row-level access, really speaking to the stakeholders in terms of how can we come up, right, with what are the best rules in order to determine where this data flows, but really on a case-by-case, use case-driven basis, rather than us drafting a very big document up front which is going to govern how we're going to do this, because that's simply not the company we are, and we would stall quite quickly if we would do that. And then starting, of course, a whole internal communications campaign in terms of how to be more data-driven, right? So, of course, you have internal magazine and Yammer post, etc., where we already start sharing testimonials, success stories of some people that have been able to, I don't know, reduce their reporting cycle. Some people that have been able to, respond better to customer feedback on why certain issues take place because of the dashboards, etc., that we have been able to provide, in order to really drive home these points around what the value can be around being more data-driven, but also having some funny examples about data quality issues, right? About how we call the same thing 7 different things on 5 different locations, and how that is also stopping us in our tracks. So allowing us to sort of pinpoint more and more, make the data stories that we have come more alive as well in our internal communication. And then in terms of products, I think interesting to mention on this row here that there's of course a lot about visuals. I think it's sort of a lot of the low-hanging fruit, bar of course the data quality issues that you encounter, and we have some examples of that going on as well. But there's also a nice product we ran, which is one more design thinking methodology, where spending some time doing user research at our terminals, trying to see what is it really that you guys can use, and can we then either ourselves develop, for example, this estimated time of completion prediction model, or hey, do you want to horizontally integrate with certain vendors, etc., that are already active in the harbor? How would that work? Can they share their data with API, into the API-ready stuff that is in Denodo, in order to see, can we quite quickly leverage some of these developments? We're running a few pilots then the second half of this year, 2022, in order to try and get to what would be the right operating model, right? Do we need to have more data people in our data team at HQ, or do we need to have a data scientist actually in the operating company itself, working out use cases together with the people that work there? And the estimates that we made around P&L impact on the back of these pilots, right? Was that realistic as an estimate, right? And is that process that we went through, is it actually replicable? Is the sum of the technology that we think could help on location A going to be scalable throughout the rest of our organization, throughout the rest of our locations? So as you see, I think throughout this presentation, very much action-driven action-driven learning here. I want to stop here and speak to some quite impactful, external and internal factors that have also been coming into our journey, right? So there's obviously quite impressive geopolitical factors also at play here. And then when as a continent, right, Europe is speaking about we do no longer want to receive Russian oil, maybe beyond, right, what is actually pushed for in terms of sanctions. We also have customers who want to go beyond sanctions, others who would wish they could do the other way around. But in that sense, if we don't have the right data and we don't serve up the right origin and destination data of where is this cargo coming from, if we don't serve that up to the right people, we're going to run into serious issues, right? And actually, I would say that without the steps that we've been making in terms of our data platforms, I think it would have been way harder for us to be compliant. And also, in an environment that changes so quickly, you need to be able to have a very flexible platform where you can quite quickly publish new data models to Power BI, right? Where you want to serve your customer service people with information for them to act on, which can change from one week to the next. And I mean, there's some examples on some of our operational dashboards. You see that that we start operation already from the vessel before the vessel was even moored at the jetty. So these are sort of the data issues that we encounter. And we can also give that information back to people in customer service, right, to show them, hey, this percentage of your orders has some sort of illogical time flow in there. So can we go back to these? Can we decrease this percentage? Which also allows managers in those departments then to say, like, okay, let's bring that number of sort of faulty orders down over time. How am I doing in terms of time? Is it
5 minutes? You're good.
Okay. I just want to round up quite quickly. Okay, this one is pretty quick, but it's I think it helps to tell you how we speak about Denodo internally. It really helps to make the contrast where on the left-hand side, talking about visuals, we had all kinds of systems driving all kinds of visuals, right? We have the ERP system, populated data that was in our app, VTTI, from which it went to ClickView. Finance data appeared in a specific platform. Maintenance data appeared in a different platform. And now with Denodo, we've been pulling everything into our data kitchen, so to speak, where we really take ingredients from all of these different sources, combine them to the right dish within the kitchen, and then serve a data model to the right application, to the right people at the right time, which allows us to maintain much better, let's talk about this data governance, right? Maintain much better who sees what and how we can change and have that single source of information. Also, of course, the fact that it's a virtual data warehouse, there's very little discrepancy between various places where the information can be saved. This is something that helps us internally communicate around the value of this data management layer. And I think this is, with 1 minute left and we can do some Q&A, this is what I want to show. The laser pointer is a bit hard to see, but initially we looked at 3 different platforms that allowed us to go from ERP, so jetty information, how long do vessels spend at the jetty, pull that into Denodo and publish a data model to Power BI. Replicated that same exercise with 3 different technologies, and literally stuff that would take us 2 months with competing platforms. We did it within 2 weeks with Denodo. So that was sort of the first step. It was a competitive analysis that we did in 21. And now more and more, we're taking in customer feedback through APIs into Denodo. We're, as I said, existing equipment. We can install additional sensors on site. So there's all kinds of providers that provide new vibration sensors that you can put on your pumps. And of course, taking it through the right cybersecurity levels. Once it's up here, might even go outside your ERP system, which is a bit harder for us to change on the fly, and take it straight to Denodo, combine it there with other information. And specifically, that has allowed us to, for example, focus more on how long vessels spend time at the jetty, right? The less time they spend at the jetty, the less fuel oil is being burned, right, in the vicinity of these cities. So really helping to reduce emissions there as well, scope 3 emissions. Same thing when it comes to monitoring existing equipment. Can we keep our equipment longer online? Do we need to resort less and less to back up diesel generators? So really sort of going use case by use case specifically on where we can make the next step. And I think internally it has helped us quite well to show it always like this and see how those flows take place. And currently within Denodo, we have roughly 36 sources of data coming in. It's not big data, right? As in like, it's several hundred gigabytes, right? It's not like Google stuff. But for example, our ERP system, we have 16 locations worldwide running on 2 different versions. And connecting all those data sources that are hosted in various locations, some of them cloud, has been quite easy for us to do. Hans, do you want to wrap up before we take some questions?
Very good. Thank you, Leander. I hope that you have seen, there was a session with Mark also on Denodo, where was also asked, what kind of use cases do you have in your industries? And like Leander already showed, that we have several use cases that we are already exploring and that we are further building on as well. We have time for some Q&A, but I just want to share with you some of our learnings that we had within our company and also with our partner. The data team there, we always say there, like Peter Drucker, we ate data for breakfast. Applications within your company, they will come and they will go, but your data will stay. That is very important. Therefore, indeed, having a sound data architecture, having a sound team in place, really, really important. One of our learnings, and also we looked at other companies as well, start centrally, and when I would say you are confident also that the quality of your data, the quality of your team is ready there, then you can start decentralizing also some of those mechanisms. But really start with that centrally. Business capabilities of your data science team, we have some newcomers also coming on board. You really must take time also to get them onboarded, showing them also what is the key of your core competence within your company. And last but not least, your team will be hijacked. What I see certainly within my team, they're bright young girls and guys. They are really also seen as talent within our company. And before you know, somebody from the business will say, I will get this talent from you, and then you have to look for some new people as well. And on that point, in our London office, we still are looking for bright new talent. So if you are looking for something, then approach myself or Leander on that as well. Something also on the Denodo itself. It really has leveraged ourselves also using the technology there to quickly scale our use cases. It was really, I would say, more easy to connect to various data sources and really look into the data quality that we needed also to improve within the company. It accelerated our ways of working, and it's also technology agnostic. What Leander showed as well, unlocking 36 sources from different types is not something that is really easy. But with the platform itself, it was quite, I would say, easy to connect it. Not saying that data modeling was not important, the querying is not important, the architecture is not important, very important. But the platform itself is really leveraging us to scale up quite quickly on that. And by that, I would say we covered a little bit our data journey, just 2 years on the road there, so a lot of years to come. And I'm happy also to open the floor to some of your questions, if you have any, to Leander or myself. On the back.
Thank you. This was very informative. And I work in an oil and gas company as well, so I could relate to a lot of the information that you presented. So thank you for that. I have one question regarding reducing the conservatism that you find in oil and gas company. So could you share with us 1 or 2 steps that you have taken along the way to reduce conservatism?
Can you hear me okay? Yeah? Conservatism as in to what extent data can really help, or how would you mean it? What do you mean exactly?
With interpreting data that the company is generating, because without experts it becomes difficult to interpret the data. So if there is reluctancy in helping data people to interpret the data, then it becomes challenging.
Yeah.
So have you faced anything like that in your way? And if you have,
No, I think
shared some.
No, I think something that speaks to that is that so we have 16 terminals, right? And they differ in size, and they differ in terms of what are the kinds of customers that are there. And we also really see that some of the customers who rent our tanks, right, and who send us ships and barges in order to discharge or load, there's a big difference between how data savvy they are themselves, right? And particularly the more demanding customers, traders, right, who really need a very dynamic operation 24/7 to go on at their terminal. They also have people in place to monitor, like, why specific delays took place, right? And they're much sharper on those conversations and in those reviews on our performance as a terminal, providing that service to them, than other customers are. So where we really see the difference, we serve up data products to all of our terminals, but pick up, and in terms of how much the application is opened and how well they are integrated in their reporting, is so much driven by how much do these people need this data, right? And that's why the terminals that really help us develop our products are the ones where the customer is every day asking, right? Explain this half-an-hour delay yesterday, right? Explain why you think this will take 2 hours longer than it did last week when we're going to do this operation tomorrow. So we really try to, let's say, put our efforts where people in the field are our internal users, not so much our customers, well, eventually our customers, but where our people in customer services and operations really need the data. And I think we need to keep that focus, I think.
Maybe quickly elaborating on that, Leander, what you see as well, although I said also that the data team should be centralized there, every use case what we do, Leander and the team, they will build a stakeholder community around that use case with the business itself. So really that's also getting the people also in the business more understanding also the importance of data, and that is not just about publishing what we have, but it's really also working on the data and the quality of that. Thanks for the question. Yeah. Anybody else having a question? Okay, then really I would like to thank you all for your patience and also your dedication. I think we have one more. So if there are any other questions, Leon and myself, we will be around. And also our partner Denodo, they have a booth here, 520 in the back there. So just go there and ask anything that you want to do. And I wish you a really pleasant conference going forward. Okay.
Thank you.